happy holiday. For all the 9 to 5ers out there, I hope that you're taking advantage, sleeping in, putting your feet up, hitting the beach, whatever floats your boat. As for me, still tracking y'all, still at the gym, just finished doing a workout. I always feel so accomplished. And I know it's crazy, but whenever I work out, I feel like I've lost weight. Now, I'm not saying that that's the truth, but after all that hard work, it certainly feels like it. And I haven't come to you guys in a while, but I wanted to just talk a little bit about mental health awareness. This month, as you know, is Mental Health Awareness Month. Normally, I'm a little bit more vocal, have a little bit more information that I share, but I haven't really done anything. And May is almost done, and I just couldn't let the whole month pass. As you guys know, mental health is important to me because I am a person that at some point in my life struggled with my mental health, right? But it's such a complex subject, and I can just never ever cover it in a vlog. For those of you who are even more interested, you can refer to my YouTube channel. I do have two, but I think it's the one that says Krishna Bo, my name, and I think you can find some shows that I may have done that addressed mental health in more detail. But one of the things I do want to say is that, listen, mental health is real. Mental illnesses are real. Mental struggles are real. And mental health crises are no respecter of persons. I think sometimes a lot of us can be so judgmental in this regard. And because we may not have had a personal experience, we tend to think, well, maybe a person is weak. Or for those of us that are Christians, you may say to yourself, maybe their faith is not where it should be. But for those who have never experienced mental health, I'll give you a pass. I understand, because it's one of those things where, to me, only he who feels it knows it. And it doesn't make sense. So it's not something that can always be explained. So I get it when others don't seem to quite understand what's happening. But, I'm not a person that's big on pomp and pageantry and tradition. So having a mental health awareness month, even though that's not my thing, I get it. Because even though we're having what I would term a mental crisis epidemic, I still think maybe it's not given as much attention and still not addressed the way it should be, Because a lot of times when somebody experiences a mental health crisis or is going through some type of mental health challenge, I still find that people still can be very nonchalant, very dismissive, very judgmental, and unhelpful. Sometimes we hear words like, oh, they lost it, or child, they crazy, or they mental, or the elevator don't go all the way up. And we know these things are happening, and we know that they're happening with people that are in our circles, with people that we communicate with. We know that they're happening to loved ones, but somehow, we make these cavalier comments, and sometimes the person is literally just left alone. And as with any other illness, if you have a physical illness and you do nothing about it, in many cases it can get worse, and then it can now become a crisis, which I think happens in so many cases with those struggling with mental health. For me, I struggled with depression and I struggled with anxiety. It was really, really hard. I still contend that it's the worst thing that I've ever experienced during my time on earth. And trying to heal the mind and to get the mind in the right space I think it's the biggest challenge one can face. And I think it's why even now in my life, I'm so obsessive about my mental well-being, and about taking care of myself emotionally and spiritually, because I've been there. I've been in that darkness. I've had the days where I had to struggle just to get out of bed. I've had the days where I wouldn't drive my car because I'm so afraid. Just complete terror in my life on a daily basis. So, I know the turmoil that happens. So for me, I'm very empathetic, very sympathetic, and I like to encourage persons, be proactive, because if you just leave it alone, sometimes it doesn't go away. Now, we know that, and when I had spoken to a psychiatrist years ago, one of the things that he told me was that, 1 out of 3 people in their life will have some type of mental health challenge, like depression or anxiety. And for most of those persons, what's going to happen is that if you do nothing, eventually within a couple of months, you'll find that you can come back to your normal self, that your body will and your mind will pick itself up out of that what you're in, and then you get back to some type of normalcy. However, for many people, like, that doesn't happen. They can have a chronic bout of depression. They can have chronic anxiety. And like I said, I want to say so much, but there's just loads of information. You have different types of depression. You have different types of anxiety. Then we have the diseases like bipolar, which in those cases, they really need to be addressed. If they're not, you could seriously be walking the streets, like literally. And then you have schizophrenia. And even with that, there's so much to learn. But sometimes schizophrenia even can be hereditary. So, the topic of mental wellness is so vast. But I just want you to be aware. And I think with this particular broadcast, one of the things I want to drive home is being proactive. If you are that person that's going through something right now, listen, I want to encourage you to just keep pushing. It sounds cliche, but you can't ever give up on yourself. Don't ever put yourself down. Don't be around anyone else that's going to put you down. Don't think that you're weak. Don't think that you're less than. Don't think that you're not a good Christian. Just know that at this time in your life, it could be for whatever reasons. It could be a trauma. It could be something physically wrong with you. It could just be, just a combination of stress. But for whatever reason you're in a crisis, listen, you can get through it. And if you are a Christian and you call on the name of the Lord, this is going to be one of your greatest weapons. Because with God, all things are possible. And unlike humans, He's not judging you. So, you got to trust Him to give you the wisdom and the knowledge so that you can get through this in the ways that you need to get. And just saying you're going to get through it and just saying that you're going to pray about it, that doesn't necessarily bring you a resolution, my friend. A psychologist at one time had a conversation with me, and his thing is, faith without works is what? Dead. So even though there will be lots of people, you may say to them, even if you open up to them and you say, hey, this is what I'm going through, they may say, well, I'm going to pray for you. Yeah, that's all fine and good, because I 110% believe in prayer. However, there are many other steps that need to be taken in a lot of cases to restore your mental well-being. And this is a little bit of a pet peeve that I have with those that are in the faith. They can actually be very judgmental and dismissive when it comes to Christians going through mental challenges. And you need to pray about it, you need to fast about it. And again, I am not in any way against these things. I myself believe 100% in prayer. However, there are practical steps that we also need to take depending on what we're going through. So I want to encourage whoever this is, whoever may be in that dark place, take proactive steps and don't feel no kind of way about it. Because listen, I always use a broken leg as an example because people sometimes don't categorize mental breakdowns, mental crises. They don't characterize them as an illness, and from the biblical or the spiritual side, they say, oh, you're being spiritually attacked. And while I don't necessarily disagree and agree that in some cases you are being spiritually attacked and that needs to be fought spiritually, I do not believe that is the only way, depending on what you're going through, to get through it. There are lots of other ways, like therapy, like cognitive behavioral therapy, which is, making a concentrated effort to train your mind to combat negative thoughts. There's medication sometimes, because listen, if you're at the point where, let's say, you're not even sleeping, you're going to have a problem, and that's going to lead to a bigger problem. So sometimes medication has to be involved. Sometimes medical help has to be involved. Then you have like the holistic remedies that are also very good. You have a lot of natural herbs now, and your vitamin B's and magnesium, and all these things are proven to assist with mood regulation. And then what I did today is a big factor, and that's why too I want to talk to you about it. Working out, which I'm doing, is so great for your mental health. In some cases, a workout can be equivalent to an antidepressant, and that's fact. That's not my opinion. You can research it. Biologically, scientifically, it's been proven that in many cases, working out, one workout can be equivalent to an antidepressant. How amazing is that? Because of course, like I said, in some cases we do have to take antidepressants. I have taken antidepressants, but as with any pharmaceutical drug, there are going to be side effects. So guess what? If you can figure out a way to deal with your mental health organically and naturally, that is awesome. So I totally advocate that. But my point is this. The point is, everything that I just mentioned is available. But we have to be proactive when we're going through. And I think one of the things that we have to remember is that, listen, mental health crisis, it happens to the best of us, okay? It happens to the rich. It happens to the poor. It happens to the old. It happens to the young. It happens to the black. It happens to the white. It happens to the slim. It happens to the fat. Listen, there are no respect of persons with this. So I think sometimes we think so highly of ourselves, and we be like, that'll never happen to me, baby. Never say never. Never say never. But the biggest thing I want to draw home, like I said, be proactive. If you can, take steps that are going to help you improve. Mental health is a journey. There's no quick fix. And sometimes, depending on exactly what you're dealing with, then you have to kind of maybe even seek the help of others. Sometimes when you're going through, you're so distraught. Like, there were seasons in my life I was so broken, people, so broken. But the Lord placed some angels in my path, and I was able to get guidance even from them. So sometimes when we can't figure out even things for ourselves, listen, reach out. Your pride is not worth sacrificing your mental health. And many times, that's one of the main reasons we do struggle in silence, because we're ashamed of the fact that we're so depressed, or we're so anxious, or we're even having these mood variations. So we suffer in silence. We don't seek help from anyone. We don't talk to anybody. And guess what? You're shooting yourself in the foot, because in a lot of cases, if you reach out enough, somehow, some way, God will provide that avenue of help for you. And I think like this is one of those cases where, in this case, you have to be strong and not care about what people say, because at the end of the day, the people who are gonna maybe say the worst things about you or speak negatively about you are ones that in most cases have no bearing on your life and the quality of life you live. And at the end of the day, we're all here for a specified period of time, and you want to live your best life. You don't want to be in bondage into a mental health condition and you can't live your life. You can't enjoy your life. You can't live that abundant life that we know God has created for us. So that's one of the things I want to encourage you to do. It's complex, like I said, but what you don't do, don't ever do, is give up. And don't ever give up on yourself. Because I can tell you one person that's always with you. God is going to always be with you. No matter what anybody say, you put him at the head of your life, and he's always going to be with you. Sometimes he will bring you that miraculous comfort. Sometimes he gives you that strength to do what you didn't even think you could do yourself. So just know that with him by your side, you can get through anything. It may not be today, may not be next week, but what you don't ever do is give up. You lose when you give up, people. And you don't give up on you. You don't give up on yourself. You don't ever do that. I tell you, some days I didn't think I was gonna get through, people. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not even gonna give you some type of cookie cutter story. There were days I was like, oh my God, I'm not gonna get through this. But there was just something, one little seed inside me that said, listen, God is with you. Healing is coming. And I'm saying that to say, even today, would I say I have experienced complete healing? I would not actually say that, but what I would say is that God showed me a lot going through that. And I'm definitely at a place where I take my mental wellness very seriously, and I am managing it well by God's grace. Some days can still be, a challenge. Some periods can still be a challenge, but one thing I'm never ever gonna do is give up. So, be proactive. Now, another point, I have to make this point. This is longer than I wanted to, but like I said, there's so much to talk about with mental health. For those of you who have someone that's going through mental health, be it a loved one, be it a friend, co-worker, whatever the case is, whatever way you would have been in contact with that person, you see something is not right. You see something is going wrong with the mind. In the name of Jesus, please do something. Don't just talk about them. Don't just say, boy, something's going on. Listen, when you're going through a mental health crisis, this is when we need the support of those that love us and of those that care about us. So don't just be dismissive. Don't just make all these ignorant comments. Be proactive yourself. See how you can help to get that person through. And many times people don't realize it. That can be the difference between somebody having a total recovery from a mental health challenge and somebody walking the streets. A lot of times it's a lack of support. It's family members and friends who just did not take the initiative to step in and to try and hold that person up and get that person through when they couldn't do it themselves. So guess what happens? It gets worse and worse until they're completely out of their minds, literally. And now you look and they're walking the streets. Listen, you see people walking the streets. That they didn't come into the world like that, They weren't born like that. And in many cases, they were not adults like that. Something happened. And something is happening. And sometimes, like I say, we have to be more concerned about our brothers and sisters, man. We have to be woke. You see something's not right, don't just chatter. See how you can help. See what way. Educate yourself if you must. Especially if it's someone really close to you. Then you're probably one of the only people those persons have. Don't be judgmental. But see, if you need to take the person to see a psychologist or a therapist, or even if you need to seek help from someone else to help you figure out how to deal with them. But there's so many cases where people don't ever come back from a mental crisis because they just did not get the support during that period. And then there are other cases when they were really supported heavily and they were able to come back to a complete health and restoration part of their life. So I just, that's the final point that I want to make. Listen, be your brother's keeper. Yeah, we Christians who are out there, you say, well, I'm going to pray. I need a little bit more than a prayer, people. More than a prayer. Again, I just think of all the ways in which God showed us. He gave us the Bible as a guideline. And do you all remember the scripture where it says, listen, if your brother comes to you, and if you say he's hungry, how the heck you can just tell him, I can pray for you, and you just let him go? Faith without works, people, is dead. You ain't even feed your brother. You could have solved the problem because you had the food there, but you didn't. So God is telling us, don't be that way. Practical, tangible help. Because, sometimes, we can use prayer as a cop-out, as an excuse. Yeah, I can pray for you. Yeah, what else you can do for me? Because I need prayer and some other stuff. And, sometimes that bothers me. So I just want to prick your minds about that. In many cases, people need a lot more than prayer. And as Christians, there's a lot more than we can do. But see, a lot of times we don't want to do it because it may be inconvenient. We may have to go out on a limb. We may have to take time out of our schedule. We may have to put our hand in our pocket. Whatever. We don't want to do it. So we just get on our spiritual high horse. Well, I'm going to pray for you. And that's it. So let's do a little bit more than that, people. Let's do a little bit more than that, especially for those of us that call on the name of Christ. We are held to a higher standard. The others, I understand. But no, we're held to a higher standard. So listen, for those who are in it, I'm praying for you, my people. I am praying for you. And what I want to tell you is you don't ever give up. Okay, you always focus on bringing healing and restoration to yourself. Sometimes it's trial and error. Like, you may even go on medications first and they may not work. You may have to try a different one because see, man is only man. Man is only human, and they can never ever recreate the human body in the way it functions. So even with the pharmaceutical drugs, you can have instances where, like, sometimes they don't work, sometimes they help, sometimes they don't. So it's a trial and error. Then there may be a combination. Like for me, it was a combination of things that I had to do in my life. I had to dig in deep to my faith. And then at one point I was seeing a therapist. And then I had to really inject myself with positive energy, positive people, positive words. It's a journey. And then at some points there was medication. And then there was one or two medications that didn't work. And then there was one that did. So it's, you can't give up. You just got to keep going through until you get to a place where, you are in a safe mental space. But, as the end of the month comes to a close, I just want us to really, really be present. And we're going to be in two roles. Either we're going to be the person going through it, or we're going to be the person that helps. I want us, those are the two roles that we're going to be in. So, please take the mental health seriously. It's not a joke, people. It's not something to be gossiped about. But it's something that can really destroy and destroys people's lives. So, I implore you just to extend God's love in this particular area, and to just know that, unfortunately, I believe mental health is the real epidemic. And see, I don't want to make this post so long, because then I want to go into do you guys notice how much of our young people are now having mental health challenges? And that's another thing, because I believe that with the internet age and all this other age, they're not even getting enough vitamin D, people. They're not getting out, they're not getting active. And like I said, all of these things can contribute to positive mental well-being. But that's another kettle of fish, where so many of our young people are seeming to have mental challenges. But I can't go down that road. We'll be here forever. But know that it's real, and the more educated we are, the more helpful we are, the more giving we are, the more loving we are. I believe that one person at a time, we can really, really make a big difference. We really can, because those angels made a big difference in my life. Would I be here today had I not had their support? I can't even say. Honestly, I don't even know. Because let me tell you, some people, it was bad. I was right there, right on that edge. But look at where God has brought me from. And God works through people. So you hear people say God is working. Yeah, God is working. But God is using us as tools to work. So, we got to get very, very tangible and very practical. So listen, I was going to go on the beach, y'all. Because guess what? Man, there's so much things. Grounding is another great thing for mental health. Grounding simply means, you take off your shoes, you free your feet. You walk on the ground, you walk in the sand. But anyway, and going in the ocean is another great thing. But, child, it's too rough. So I'm not going to be doing any of those things today. But I'm going to leave you guys now. This vlog is way longer than I anticipated. But I'm just hoping that my concern and my passion for the struggle of mental health is recognized. And that somebody is affected positively by this post, okay? But listen. Keep pushing, y'all. I'm not going to go into how I don't think I've still lost a pound. But you know what I ain't doing? I'm not giving up. That's what I'm not doing. I'm not giving up. And this is so good for my mental that I am keeping up with my working out, getting those muscles, And beach body is loading. So, until we talk or meet again, be well. Keep your mental health as priority. Your mental wellness encompasses who you are as a human being. So make it a priority in your life. Have yourself a beautiful, beautiful holiday. And here's sending you lots of love and light to your life. See ya.